I think Panasonic has done a good job of recreating sourdough in a bread maker. It's not a true sourdough because it contains yogurt and yeast, but it's easy and it's really quite tasty. Plus, you don't have to maintain a traditional starter. The water for the starter needs to be at 20 degrees C. 60 grams of plain yoghurt straight from the fridge. Look at this absolute unit of a yoghurt. It's strained zero fat Greek style, but full fat is fine too. 80 grams of rye flour, I use dark rye. Half a teaspoon of salt, I'm using kosher, and 80 ml of water. 0.1 grams of dried yeast measured with the tiny spoon. I know this is just static electricity, but it always freaks me out. Give it a good mix, making sure that the flour and yoghurt are well combined, then put the container into the bread maker and choose the sourdough starter program. It'll take 24 hours to ferment. It's done, and it should look bubbly and smell slightly sour and alcoholic. You can use it straight away or put it in the fridge for up to a week. You can't freeze it though. Pop your paddle in, then add the starter. It's around 215 grams, but it doesn't matter if you're a bit shy. 400 grams of flour, and this is where I deviate slightly from the manual. I want to include some wholemeal flour to increase the fibre, so I'm going with 300 grams of white and 100 wholemeal. Add 1 teaspoon of salt and 160 ml of water. That's 10 ml extra because wholemeal flour absorbs more water than white. Into the bread maker, then add 3/4 of a teaspoon of dried yeast to the yeast dispenser. You can add the yeast directly to the bread pan, but try to keep it away from the salt. Select the Sourdough Loaf program, which takes 5 hours. A little peep at the dough, and the program's finished. First loaf done. It didn't want to come out of the bread pan, so I left it for 5 minutes, and I know it is so tempting to get an implement in there just to help it out. And I have used this in the past thinking, oh, it's fine, it's soft plastic. But I've scratched my bread pan doing that. So if you just leave it for 5 to 10 minutes, it will eventually come out. Oh, the bread paddle is still in there. Huh. Okay, right, I have to get that out. Right, got this extra crispy bit. Oh, it's quite tough. Right, I'm going to make the dough version now because that recipe's been updated too. I just need to get the paddle out. It doesn't usually get stuck in there. I think you're supposed to let it cool and then sort of press down to get it out, but I don't have time for that. There we go. I try and get every last bit out and it totals to 215 grams, but you don't need to do this. I'm going to be here all day doing this. What I sometimes do when I make the starter is just add a few more grams of each ingredient so this doesn't take long. 215. Let's keep going. Oops. Too much. Take it back. Time to shape the bread. Always my least favourite bit. When it's just me and the dough, no problem. When it's me, the dough and the camera, I just never do a very good job. You'll see though, it doesn't matter. The bread generally turns out okay. The paddle stayed in that time. It's got quite a sour smell to it in a good way. It's a little bit sticky, but not sticky like a sourdough can be. I can see little bubbles in it. Yeah, it's quite a firm dough. I feel like it needs to be more of a sausage. Oh, I always do this. I always mess about with the dough too much. Right, let's leave it there. Use my flour wand. I'm just going to put a bit of semolina in the bottom of the Banneton because I really like the texture that it gives the bread. And it'll help it not to stick. Hopefully it'll expand that way as well as that way. I put my top oven on for a few minutes just to heat it and get it a bit warm. And then I will pop this dough in there for probably about 45 minutes to an hour, just until the dough has risen. Oh, wow. Someone suggested on my previous video that I should score this loaf. I do that for my traditional sourdough loaves, but this is a yeast loaf and I don't really think it needs it. These loaves tend to rise quite uniformly just as they are. Turn it out. Whoa, 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 whoa. I think the dough version has turned out quite well. Right, I've got one more loaf to go. I am going to make this one again, but with a bit more water, just as an experiment. I will make it overnight using the timer. You can set it for up to 9 hours. Normally it's 13, but 9 is the most you can do for this recipe. I have made this fake yogurt sourdough video before, and I used the recipe from my old manual. Now I've got a new bread maker, and a commenter pointed out that the recipe is different. It's got more flour and more water, but it wasn't increased proportionally. I really love the old recipe, and this new one has a slightly lower hydration, about 5% less, so I want to see if I can match the old loaf. Definitely stick with the first loaf. There is too much water here and the top has collapsed. It's still going to taste good though. I would recommend using the timer because waking up to the smell of this bread is just such a treat. Anyway, let's slice into the loaves now, have a look and then have a taste. Loaf 1 isn't that much shorter, I've just cut it from the sloped end. Future Tanya here. I made another loaf overnight, 170 ml of water, woke up to that lovely smell again, and this one's looking better, isn't it? You can see that it's more even, and that is because I moved my bread maker away from the window to the centre of the house. It's not in a very convenient place, and I won't do that a lot, but my bread always slopes, and I've had a suspicion that it's because the bread maker sits near a window and it's the temperature variation, and I think this proves it. Anyway, I'm really happy with this loaf. Let's get back to the taste test. I think I've just done that thing where I've slightly cut the roof of my mouth. The crust on this is very crispy. Well, it tastes lovely though. That one's the freshest, that was made this morning. Then we got the dough. Right, I've left a corner without Marmite so I can compare the taste. But I couldn't have all this toast and not have Marmite. Oh, tea and toast. I'm going to be honest, there's not much in it. So the one with more water has a slightly more open crumb. This one's got a bit of rye, but they all taste really lovely. I mean, they're all toasted and buttered, so they're going to. You're never going to get that open crumb that you get with a true sourdough. But in terms of flavour and the crust, I think this is as good as you're going to get in a bread maker. If you give it a go, I would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful. Also, to my Dutch friend who had a disaster loaf, I hope the weather's warmed up for you and I hope you try this again. Good luck.